Today. I don't know whether I slept too much or just having a hard time still waking up, but it's afternoon and I still don't feel like I'm completely alert
Okay.
and going. So we'll be okay though. We'll be okay.
Okay. Try some fresh drinks, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I have to get something going here. I got a cup of coffee this afternoon. That should be fine.
Yep. Okay, Bob, you are good to go.
Okay, great.
Your TA will be here soon, I guess. I guess your TA for today is Lester. He will be here soon. All
Okay,
right.
Mr. Segui.
Yep. Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Lester. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Bob.
Hello,
Hello.
everybody.
Oh, we have some people from all over today, I think, huh? Okay, so who's not living in the United States right now? Anyone? Is anyone living in a different country or all of you from the United States right now?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, great.
I'm
Okay.
from Venezuela, but I live here.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm from Venezuela, but I live in Florida.
Oh, okay. Where are you living now?
Where in Florida?
In Florida. Okay. Okay. Great. I would love to go visit Venezuela, but here it's a beautiful country.
Beautiful country. The
Yeah.
only problem now is the government.
Yes, I understand. Okay, so I'm getting a few things set up on my desktop here, just so that we can get ready for class. So some of you are probably familiar with how to use chat. If you would like to put something in chat about the country or the part of the world you're thinking you might go to or want to move to, feel free to do that. We do have a TA, Lester, that is with us today. So if any of you are having any technical difficulties, or questions that come up, he'll be helping to monitor chat. If you are familiar with the um, the Get Set Up platform. Thank you, Lester. Appreciate that. I usually have a record button. We have to manually start recording and remember to record, and our TAs help us remind us to do that. So thank you. We are live streaming this class as well. So those of you that are joining us from live stream, welcome. We'll give people a minute or two. But does anybody have any particular area of the world that they think they'd like to go to or live in or anything like that?
This is Nikki Taylor.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi. I've been to Italy and seen Venice, Florence, and Rome. But the tour that I was on was with Rick Steves. And it was 3 days in each city. And definitely you can't see Rome in 3 days. So that's where I would love to go back to, is Rome.
Okay. Are you Italian at all?
No, I'm not.
Okay, because it's interesting. Italians can actually get if you have a parent or even a grandparent that's Italian, they have a program now, I understand, that lets you apply for citizenship and gets to a dual citizenship.
Wow.
Yeah, somebody mentioned,
Is that the only country that does that?
Well, if you have $1 million, Malta will give you a citizenship. I understand, although I don't know if they do it that much anymore. They used to do it a little too much, and the European Union clamped down on that a little bit because people were buying European Union citizenship by doing it that way. I think in the United Kingdom, if you have a parent that was born in the country, you can apply for citizenship, and a few other countries, but not too many, not too many. But it is possible to have dual citizenship in places. Okay, well, I think we've got everyone here. So thank you all for coming to Live or Retire Abroad. Is it right for you? There's actually a series of classes that we do, and it came about. I'll tell you a little bit of story about how it came about, but we do a couple of classes. One's on Live or Retire Abroad about healthcare and culture. One's about finances and costs and getting work while you're abroad. And another one's about your lifestyle when you go abroad too. Retirement brings with it a lot of chances. You're going to get a lot of information today that is kind of fun to explore. And even if you don't want to do it, it's kind of a fun idea to think about. But I did it for a couple of years in a couple of countries outside of the U.S. I literally sold my home and moved abroad, but I had help. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. Okay, so you should see a slide about me. I'm your guide, Bob. Right now, I am living in an over 55 community in Seal Beach, California. I don't know if any of you know where Seal Beach is located, but it's halfway between Long Beach and Orange County. It's along the coast. I'm literally, 2 miles from the ocean, so I can get down there in about 10 minutes if I want to. And I love the weather here. I love bicycle riding. I was born in Chicago. I know there's a lot of people from the Midwest that usually join us. And I grew up in Chicago. My dad was a school teacher, and we took Route 66 out to visit my grandmother every summer for a summer vacation. And I said, I want to live in California when I can. So I came to school and ended up living out here. And I've worked in the technology industry most of my career. I teach a lot of technology classes. And some of you may have seen the classes. I don't recognize any faces, but maybe I'm bad at faces. But sometimes, I do classes on Windows. This morning I did a class on, PowerPoint. I did a class on using Zoom virtual backgrounds. I do classes on Windows and iPhones. I use all kinds of technology. It's kind of a hobby to me, but it's not a hobby for everybody. I know it, but it's fun to make things simpler. So Get Set Up is a organization that helps do training and education on a wide range of topics. A friend of mine, for those of you that are interested in fitness, a friend of mine, Christina Shafton, has just joined Get Set Up, and she'll be offering yoga classes at some additional yoga times that we have. You can request a recording after class at help@getsetup.io. We have help. Lester is helping me monitor chat. So if questions come up, he can raise his hand to get my attention so that we can answer questions in chat as we go along. And I'm going to pause frequently for questions as well. And we're not paid to promote specific products or anything, but you will find some things that come up periodically as we go through the slides and presentation. So the agenda today is trying to see, is living abroad or retiring abroad right for you? And it's not right for everybody, but it does have certain appeals, but it does have certain downsides. So we're going to talk about what is good about living abroad. Let me get my marker here going. So we're going to take a look at pros. Oh, that's a bad color. I got to get a brighter color than that. Pros and cons about living abroad. What are some good destinations and why? Okay. Why are they good destinations? Okay. And what are some of the essentials of costs and healthcare and something called visas? And I'll share with you my approach towards planning and preparation. It's not everybody's, but there's, some people just jump right in and they're really good about it. So there's no right or wrong place to go living abroad. It's just a matter of what it offers you and why it might be a benefit for you. So people looking at Scotland, not sure if they like it, possibilities, ideas. I think we're all kind of, thinking when it's a post, COVID world, and that's probably the right way to think about it. And we'll take a look at some things. So if you have questions, join it, put them in chat. Anybody have any specific things they're hoping to find out about living or retiring abroad? Okay, well, this is good. For how many of you is it evening? Is it evening where you're located? Is it, okay, okay. How many is it still afternoon? Okay.
It's 7 o'clock here.
Okay, okay, great. Well, let's see. Let's take a look at a few things here. The pros, the positive side of living abroad. Okay, there are some great things you can get. You can improve your standard of living. You can move to a place in the world where it's less expensive than where you might be living now, depending on where you're living. Okay, it depends, because there are a lot of moderate to places to live from a cost standpoint in the United States. But maybe you want to move somewhere for a better climate. It's springtime right now, but it's not springtime all year long. What if you could move to a place in the world where it was every day was like spring, and every day you'd wake up, it'd be like 61, 62 degrees. Every day it'd get up to about 84. It would rain about 11 o'clock at night for a couple hours, and the next morning you'd wake up and it'd be 61 again. Right? Every day of the year, right? There are places like that in the world that you can do that. Maybe you want to retire early. You can lower costs, like maybe, if you aren't quite ready for Medicare yet, or some other health plan, or you just decide, hey, I want to, do something while I still can and get around. And there's people out there like digital nomads and others that move around the world. Maybe you're just interested and you like a foreign culture. You've been to some place, it's been really curious. You say, just this seems really, really interesting. And living someplace for a month, 3 months, a year, you really get to know a place really well when you do that. Maybe it's just a sense of adventure or making new friends. Expats that live abroad, really easy to make new friends. Or just a change in lifestyle. Maybe you'd less like to live by the beach, or live in the mountains, or live near where a coffee plantation is and get your coffee fresh every day, type of thing. So there's lots of pros. There are some downsides to things. One thing you have to be careful of some of the magazines and publications that are out there is they paint a rose-colored picture of what it's like to live and retire abroad. And it's not for everybody. So sometimes there are things where you can go to a more expensive place. My late wife was Norwegian, and we went to Norway for a vacation in 2009, and we'd stop at a convenience store type gas station on the roads, and to pick up a bottle of water was $7.
Yes, too much expensive.
And so some countries can be really expensive. Okay. Some countries are a lot less expensive. In some countries, your utility bills might be $25 a month. But in other countries, the standard of living's high and costs are high. You're going to be a little further away from family and friends. I think one thing we've all kind of learned during COVID is having a network of people close by is really helpful in keeping in touch. How far away do you want to be from the US, and how long a trip are you willing to take? To get to someplace like Thailand or Cambodia, which are great destinations, takes about 24 hours, and then you've got jet lag to work with. If you only have to do that twice a year. I have a friend that runs a bread and breakfast out of Martha's Vineyard, and he travels to Thailand in October and he comes back in March. So that's his snowbird, destination that he does. And he's gotten to know people that live there year round. If you're going to get a job, or you're hoping to get a job, the wages are lower in many cases, or it's very difficult to get a work visa. There might be some language barriers. And so the more you can speak the native language, the more freedom you have to explore, enjoy activities, and perhaps in negotiate, on pricing. There's some paperwork, and paperwork is different in different parts of the world, so you have to be patient. And then if you do end up needing some assisted living help at some point, there's really not a lot of options. And most of the rest of the world, multi-generational families take care of people, and there's not that much in terms of assisted living. So being ambulatory and mobile is really valuable as something. Any questions about those pros and cons? Kind of makes sense, what you sort of maybe expected, to have. Okay, so these are the, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 characteristics that make a good destination. Things that we take for granted sometimes that we shouldn't. Like, can you get the kind of housing you want? Okay, and is comfortable. I can't imagine going back in time and having to live without indoor plumbing anymore. It's not that you're not going to find indoor plumbing all over the world. You can, but maybe the housing isn't what you'd like or what you'd expect, or what you'd want. Where can you live? You like apartments? You like homes? Do you like, what other things? You can find a lot of things available, particularly in cities. The climate we talked about, what's good. Imagine, if you're not used to a climate where there's a lot of rain, maybe that's something that gets in your way. I moved to Atlanta, and I didn't like all the rain that was in Atlanta compared to Southern California. We have kind of a dry climate here. And since I like bike riding, the rain would get in my way. Is healthcare available? The kind of healthcare you want? Can you get a visa that will let you stay there longer than a tourist? Some countries it's easy to do. Other countries don't want to do it. And so countries that make it easy make a good destination. Is the cost of living comparable, lower, whatever you might want to look for? Can you take care of banking and finances? Most places in the world do have ATM machines, and it is possible to move money almost anywhere in the world easily too. Maybe you'd like to connect with an expat community. You can find a lot of expat communities in Facebook groups. They're really helpful. So if you're thinking about going to someplace like Barcelona or Medellin, Colombia, or Bangkok, Thailand, you can find expat groups that get together and share information. What's your lifestyle? What are you going to do when you live there? If you're retired, you have time on your hands, and so your daily routine might be a little bit different. So what do you plan to do with your time to occupy yourself? And what were the things you might want to do with your time? Infrastructure. Can you take a bus? Can you get to an airport? Internet pretty much all over the world without any problem. And is the country you're going to stable, government stable? We don't want to go places where the government's going to get overthrown. And is it safe? So these are all good things to think about when you move somewhere, right? So there's 2 organizations that make up what they call top 10 lists. One is International Living, and one is Live and Invest Overseas. They used to be independent. I don't know for sure, but they look like they might be owned by the same people now, because their websites look very similar. And I'm going to show you their websites in a minute. But they make up a list of countries. Now, just because a country is not in the top 10 list doesn't mean it's good. It's just that they kind of evaluate it based on their writing staff and feedback from people and other things. And there's usually a little bit of mix in them, but they don't change all that much. And so you might find, for example, Spain doesn't show up on this list, but it's, I think, about 12th or 13th. And sometimes it moves up higher, sometimes it moves down lower. Right now, Portugal's probably one of the most popular countries in Europe to go to because it's relatively inexpensive, and they are encouraging people to move to Portugal. Costa Rica had been down on the list for a while, but it's gotten more moderately priced because Panama has gotten more expensive. Mexico is still the #1 country in the world for Americans to go and live. There's estimated there's about 2 million Americans that live in Mexico. And then you look at places like Southeast Asia, like Malaysia or Vietnam. And then there's Malta, although Malta is a little on the pricey side, in my opinion. Now, live and invest overseas. The ones in bold are on both lists, but they have Cuenca, Ecuador. Very popular destination. It's high up in the mountains. It's about 8,000 feet in altitude. And some people find that's comfortable. Some people find it's a little too high, but there's a popular expat community there. Belize is very popular because English is the national language. It's a former English colony. So you can get down to tropical climate, live in Belize. It's very beach and tropical, ocean, Caribbean ocean oriented. So you don't find typically too many big cities, but you can get over to Mexico pretty quickly. And so Medellin is one of my favorite cities in the world. I like it. You don't see Thailand, but it's a popular destination as well. So that's just the quick list. Now let me show you their websites, if I can get my screen to behave a little bit here. There we go. All right, now I'm getting it to behave. Okay, so let's see. Let me find my website and get it set up to share with you. All right, so I'm going to change my sharing to the web and show you International Living's website. And then I'll show you Live and Invest Overseas. And then we'll take a look at a younger couple that kind of did some things. So International Living, it's a magazine, it's a publication, it's a great place to start. Just keep in mind that they do have affiliations with real estate organizations. So they sometimes encourage people to buy property. I'm a big fan of renting wherever you go. But they do have they have a magazine that's good for starting out. I subscribed for about 2 or 3 years, and then I didn't need it any longer. But it was good to get myself acquainted with things. And they have great reports on countries: Costa Rica, Mexico, Belize, Ecuador, the popular ones, Spain, and they have more countries here too. So if you were looking for something maybe on Scotland, we might be able to find something. Europe, Ireland, France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Malta, Greece, a few more. Scotland, they don't have a report on. Partly it's an English language country, but it's also not as popular a live or retire abroad destination as some other people might look at. So it's not a report company they do reports on. Typically in Europe, they'll report on countries that they see a lot of interest in. Same thing in Asia, on Oceania, on Central America and South America. And so their country reports are pretty thorough. If we take a look at something like Costa Rica's report, for example, they'll talk about the country, they'll talk about the different places in the country. They'll talk about popular places that people choose to go. They'll always, pop up with an ad, so that you have to put up with that a little bit. But they talk about different cities. Where is it? Some popular places where expats seem to gravitate to live. And they have a little on-site reporter, medical care, climate, rain, lifestyle, driving, bureaucracy, shipping, flight choices, translate language, slower pace, things like that. So they're pretty good benchmark for doing things. Let's see, Keisha, I have a question. Do you think certain countries will be leery of allowing expats into their country? Well, right now there are a lot of travel restrictions anyway. I have a son that lives in Spain and runs a business in Spain and Malta and Poland. And in Spain, they do not allow anyone into the country unless they're related to a Spanish national without a quarantine. And even if they do, if you just have a family member living there, like he's not a Spanish citizen, I would have to get special permission from the Spanish government to get a special visa to actually go there. So there are a lot of restrictions right now because of COVID. And we're hoping that they will come down a little bit, but they may be in place for a little while. Okay, so international living, good site, good destination, good place to start with, okay? And so that's one place. The other one is live and invest overseas. You see their websites do a lot of the same things, so I'm wondering if they're related, but they do have country reports here, top destinations. Now they put Dominican Republic up there, but they also put Argentina. I have a family member that loves Argentina. They invested in a winery in Argentina, and they have some best for retiring, cost of living, investment, single women, starting an online business, establishing residency. So they're both worth checking, and you're going to get links to both of these sites in the email after class with notes in it, okay? So when you say like establishing residency, you can get a visa to live somewhere, but establishing residency is a big effort. Typically, you have to live somewhere for quite a number of years in order to get residency with something. But getting a visa to go somewhere is a little bit different. Getting a visa is something you have to do when you're going somewhere and staying there for a little period of time. Okay, so we took a look. How about that? Okay, so political, crime, and legal system. The U.S. Department of State is our resource as citizens of the United States and residents here to go to when we want to learn about what's safe to do in other countries. And there's also another one called the Index of Public Integrity. It's a private organization because corporations started sending people to work overseas. We're a global economy. So as businesses and corporations like, say, Coca-Cola or Ford Motor or Amazon started sending people to work overseas, they wanted to know what to do for their employees when they sent them overseas. Where do they find a place to live? What do they pay them? What's the safety of the place they're going to be sending them to live and work? In many cases, they go with their families. And so the whole international business organizations, there's people out there that are set up to help corporations. And in many cases, we can take advantage of it. For example, I know a lot of people like to travel or work abroad. If they have a company assignment and they get assigned to Barcelona, they like to get assigned to Spain, and they prefer Barcelona a little bit more than Madrid, although Madrid is pretty good too. But in Barcelona, they oftentimes think, oh, we'll get there and we'll have the kids go to school and they'll learn Spanish. Mm-hmm. Well, Spanish schools aren't that common in Barcelona because Barcelona is part of Catalan. And the primary language in the Catalan province of Spain is Catalonian. So you'll find that on the menus and the restaurants and other things, there'll be the menu will be in Catalonian, it'll be in English, and then it'll be in Spanish. And so you find many times that a lot of people, particularly in the tourist areas of Catalan, are very fluent in English. But it's one of these things where if you live overseas, you might wonder where it is. Did I really come to Spain? And you're really in Catalan. They have a very different flavor of culture a little bit, but it's a safe area. But you have to be careful of things like pickpockets. It's like any place. I grew up in Chicago, and when I went to downtown in the Loop to go shopping or anything like that, you were careful. You made sure you watched your wallet, your purse. You didn't talk to strangers and all those rules that you learn in any big city. So you do that as well. But I took a bus in Costa Rica from downtown back to my language school, and I was the only gringo on the bus, and I didn't feel unsafe, at all. It was a very safe area to go in. But it cost me 25 cents for the bus ride, as opposed to about $3.50 for an Uber. And I said I wanted to take the bus, because you start to venture out and do those types. But I was in Rio de Janeiro, and a friend I'd made that worked in a restaurant, she said, don't take the bus ever. Even the locals don't like to take the buses because they aren't safe. So some cities, you have to be careful. But Costa Rica as a country is pretty safe all over. In Thailand, I felt safe everywhere. But, you have to be careful no matter where you go.
Yep.
But the countries that make the list are on the list because they tend to be relatively safe and secure. Okay. Healthcare. I don't know how many of you on Medicare. I'm on Medicare, but I also have a Medigap policy in addition to my Medicare. Okay. So my Medigap policy, let me get here to a new slide here. My Medigap policy has US insurance as a supplement to it. But Medicare stops at the border. It just isn't any good outside of the United States. So if you're counting on Medicare to be your medical insurance, but traveling overseas, it isn't. Even if you're on vacation, it just has no value overseas at all. So if you might have a supplement plan, like where you assigned your Medicare to somebody else and they manage at a Medicare Advantage plan, or you might have a Medigap plan. In that case, you've got an insurance card from your insurance provider, and call the 800 number on the back of it and do the research now. Find out what is it they cover, and when you travel overseas, how long will they cover you for on a trip? Because you're going to start making exploratory trips. You're going to start exploring a couple of destinations, a couple of locations, a couple of places. And when you go on your travel overseas, you can get, sometimes your current Medigap and Medicare Advantage plan will help you out while you're on vacation. Okay, so even American territories are covered, for Medicare. As long as you're in the United States or a territory of the United States, Medicare works. But as soon as you step outside the borders of the United States, Medicare does not work. So you can buy add-ons. There's a couple of insurance companies. One that I used is GeoBlue, and you're going to get a link to that in the notes. GeoBlue gives you an add-on policy that lets you travel up to 180 days during the year and spend up to 90 days in any one location, okay, which is about what you can do with your passport anyway. And it cost me about $250 when I took it out. So it's not expensive, okay? And it gives you access to English-speaking medical staff, translation services. It gives you a list of doctors and medical offices and hospitals, and it's recognized because of all this international business that goes on. People that come to US have international healthcare policies as well. Two other companies that do it are Cigna and Aetna International. And this is a picture of a hospital lobby in Medellin, Colombia. One of the things that Pablo Escobar did when he was, running all the drug cartels is he invested a lot in medical facilities because he wanted to be, he wanted to give something back to the people. And so he built and funded a lot of hospitals, and they have some of the best hospitals in the world. Thailand is a destination location for medical, what's called medical tourism. So you find lots of times that people that are paying out of pocket for non-critical, care will oftentimes go overseas for elective procedures because they are so much less expensive. And the reason is that the wage scales are a lot lower, but you can get good healthcare anywhere in the world, particularly in major metropolitan areas. Okay. Finances. Okay. You're going to have a budget for housing. You can really live somewhere. The article that got me going on all this was an article I read in a publication that said, here's 10 countries in the world you can live on for $1,500 a month if you're a couple. Okay. And I said, well, I can do that. And so I went to take a look at a lot of these places. Hey, Kathleen, you got your hand up. Let's take a question.
I had a question on the medical insurance. So
Sure.
I was where was I? In the Czech Republic, and had an accident and broke ribs and was in the hospital. And what I was told there, even though I had travel insurance, they said, we don't take any kind of insurances. You pay cash.
Some countries you pay cash and you go get reimbursed by your insurance provider, depending on the policies. Right. But that's why I say check these. These countries, like companies like Cigna and Aetna International, and they will tell you if they have providers that accept their coverage in those countries.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's so sometimes you might end up in an emergency room that they don't take the coverage, and so you should have a credit card where you can put things on, but then you can claim that. But these companies typically have arrangements. So the travel policies that you buy through, these are different policies that you buy through airports or travel agencies. These are designed for expats and long-term travel, people that spend a lot of time overseas.
Yeah, I tried getting reimbursed from the travel insurance company, and I got no response at all. But the cost of medical care in the Czech Republic was so small that it wasn't worth the hours I would have spent trying to recoup $200. And so
that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up, because costs are lower for medical care, and a lot of times people you pay cash, for a lot of things. You can go to a pharmacy and get a lot of prescription medication that you would require an MD's prescription here in the US. You can buy it over the counter, dispensed by the pharmacist. In many cases, the pharmacist will give you medical advice too. Of course, it depends on their language skills. So it helps to have something like Google Translate, with you in your phone that you can use for that. But you're right, costs are very different. Yeah. But these companies, I've had pretty good experiences with them, and these are used by global companies, corporations that send employees overseas to provide healthcare coverage for their company. But you can always check and make sure, what's my coverage going to be if I travel somewhere? The policies you buy through travel policies are not the same as these for expats. They're a little bit different. Okay, finances and costs. How do you know it's going to cost to live somewhere? Well, a lot depends on the lifestyle you want to live. If you want to eat at an American style restaurant all the time, you're going to pay more money. But if you adapt locally, when I was in Thailand, one of the things I did was I went at lunch, I paid attention at dinner time to where the staff went to eat. And I found that they went out the back door of the hotel, and there was a street behind the hotel that had food vendors, that was street carts that were set up, that were serving chicken and rice and other things, and they would make it up for you fresh. I think I paid $1.25 for dinner, at one of those carts. And you actually see it getting cooked, and so you know it's getting cooked well. But if you want to eat at a Subway or a McDonald's or a KFC or something like that, you will pay more. So part of it's adapting, but you can do a lot of things that are adaptable. But you can really live entertainment, local travel, other things that you might want to look at. So I'm going to show you a linked website here, video, and let me get through the ad here, because you don't need to see the ad. Okay, so let me get this set up. And this is a young couple that relocated to Mexico about 3 years ago. Now they promote themselves. They decided to live off of doing a YouTube channel, which is kind of interesting. But they're really well known. They've developed a good reputation because they're pretty honest about what they do, and they have some information on what their cost of living is for living in Mexico. And I will tell you right up front, when they mention electricity, they had just moved into this apartment. They did post something later on that says their average cost for electricity is $25 a month. But it's kind of interesting to see what they say. So let me get this set up to share it and make it full screen for you, so we can enjoy it. Okay. So okay.
It's a lot of T's.
Tangerine Travels, tackling a topic.
One of the most common questions we get asked on our channel is, what is the cost of living in Mexico, our cost of living? And before we dive in, we want to give a little disclaimer, if you will. We realize that it's super general to say, what is our cost of living in Mexico? Mexico is a huge country, but we do feel like we have a pretty unique perspective on this topic because we've been to 39 cities across the country over the course of 16 months. Also, if you're not familiar, we are currently living in Puerto Morelos, which is a small beach town in the state of Quintana Roo, between Cancun and Playa del Carmen, so a lot of these costs are going to be very specific to this town. Oh, and in case you noticed this snazzy Alaska shirt that I'm wearing, this and other designs are finally ready at tangerinetravels.com, and I hope you're saying finally, because we've been telling you about these t-shirts for, I don't know, a year now, and we got our act together and they are there. tangerinetravels.com.
To start off, we have our rent.
We recently moved into a new place. It is a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, and we are paying
$500 a month.
That includes water and internet. If those were not included in our price, what seems to be an average water bill, at least in this area, is about 130 to 160 pesos, depending on water usage.
Yeah, and for internet, our landlord is paying 500 pesos a month. We've seen internet vary from about 200 on the low end to 500 on the high end. Next is electricity. In all the rentals we've had throughout Mexico, this is the first one where we are the ones responsible for paying the electric, and that's because we haven't had air conditioning until now. And if you don't have air conditioning, your electric bill is probably going to be dirt cheap.
A few things to note on the electricity front. It works a little differently here than it does in the US, at least in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
We're only paying every 2 months instead of monthly, is what I'm used to in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's tier pricing. So if you hit a certain kilowatt usage, the price per kilowatt goes way up, and then at another tier it goes up even more than that. So it behooves you to conserve electricity and like not blast your air conditioning.
Yeah.
From what we were told in Ajijic, do you want to explain that?
If you reach one of those higher tiers, it's pretty difficult to get back down to the lower tiers. You have to show a low usage for quite a few months in order for them to drop you back down. So you can either literally have a bill that's like $2, or you could have one that's hundreds of dollars depending on your usage. We have not personally got our first electric bill, but after talking to a neighbor and his experience in town, we're estimating an average bill throughout the cold season and hot season being about $75 a month with air conditioning.
Something else not included in our rent is gas, and the gas is used for hot water, the stove. If we had a washer and dryer, it might be used for that as well. And this last time we filled up with 1,000 pesos for like what I think is an average size tank. And depending on usage, it could last 3 to 6 months. We cook a lot, so I imagine it's probably going to be about 3 months that it'll last. And so that averages out to $17.47 per month. The next section is food, and we've broken this down into a bunch of different categories: groceries, eating out at restaurants, drinking out at restaurants, drinking water, filtered water for at home, and
Costco membership. Starting with the Costco membership, we buy a lot of our groceries there, and it's a little over $2 a month. And it's much cheaper in Mexico than it is in the US.
However, there's no Costco gas, and that's a feature I really liked in the US. Cheap gas at Costco. The next one is drinking water, and that's us going to like OXXO or the grocery store and getting those big garrafones of water refilled with purified water, and that averages out to about $6.71 a month.
The first time you buy those, you have to pay a deposit for the plastic bottle itself, but every time after that, it's going to be much cheaper, and it's just the refill cost.
Something like 30 pesos or so. The next categories: groceries, eating out, and drinking aloud, drinking aloud, and drinking out. Those fluctuate so much for us. Some months we're basically cooking all at home, other months we're going out, and it also depends on the city. So we've tried our best to do some averages here of what we've done across the span of 16 months.
For eating out, we fall typically in between the range of $100 and $500 a month. It's a really wide range, totally depending on how much we cook at home.
And we separated out going out for drinks, and we think that averages around $70 a month. Then moving on to groceries, of course this is another category that could just be all over the place. If we're going to local produce markets, that's only about 100 pesos for a week's worth of produce. Crazy
dirt cheap.
Whereas if we're going to a store like Chedraui or Costco for more things like, I don't know, milk, Greek yogurt, gluten-free pancake mix we decided to get, it'll be much higher. The average of both of those two, we'd say, is around $62.88 per month.
Next is our cell phone bill. Before coming to Mexico, we had T-Mobile, and they actually have a really good plan for Mexico. It's probably the best plan you can have for someone visiting. For the two of us, it was $100 a month. But now we switched to Telcel after a few months in Mexico, and that dropped to a little over $31.
Granted, it's not unlimited data anymore, but it's so inexpensive to buy more. We usually get the 300 peso paquete, and that has
2.5 gigabytes of data, but a lot of times they're running promotion where you get 5 gigabytes.
So if we ever need more, we just pay 100 pesos, 200 pesos to get more data. No big deal. Still much cheaper than we were paying before.
Okay, I just wanted to share a little bit of that with you, and you're going to get a link to watch the whole thing. They're kind of a nice, couple. They're pretty realistic about what the costs are, and they also did a recent video on things they wish they had done before they moved to Mexico. And one of them is learn the language, and another one is get rid of stuff. It took them a lot longer to get rid of stuff than they thought. To clear some things out. I had sold my house and got rid of a lot of my possessions before I moved, and just kept things in a storage unit. And it does take a lot of work to do that. So it can be very, very demanding. But you can live around the world for a lot less money than you might think about. And there's a couple of other sites out there too that can help you out. One of them is a place called Expatistan, and let me bring them up here, or Numbeo. Okay, so Expatistan and Numbeo give you cost of living indexes, and so you can find out on Numbeo, for example, what the index is by country or prices by city anywhere in the world. Okay, so you can select data by any interest that you might have, or you can look at a cost of living comparison. of cities. So if you're looking at, say, something like Glasgow, Scotland, okay, Glasgow, United Kingdom, let's compare it to Long Beach, California. And I want to compare what things are. So a lot of things, okay, beer is going to be more expensive in Long Beach, but meals might be less expensive. So it gives you prices in in British pounds. We can change this to dollars by scrolling down. And this is one of a good site that helps you get an idea of what places are cost around the world. They have rankings by different types of things that you can look at. So some of these costs are going to be lower cost. Let's take a look at one of the bigger costs, which is rent. Well, rent's about half. A one-bedroom apartment in the city center of Glasgow is going to be half of what it is in Long Beach. But Long Beach is pretty expensive to live in. Southern California prices are kind of ridiculous in terms of living here. But you can see that your costs are going to be less in Glasgow for certain things, but it might be more than what you're paying now. I mean, when I was in Atlanta, paying $1,000 a month for one bedroom apartment was perfectly reasonable to expect. The other one is called Expatistan, very similar information. And again, these are country websites that kind of set themselves up with free information, but they give you the ability, they give corporations and organizations the ability to do some things that make it more flexible for them to get an idea what it's going to cost to send an employee or an employee's family overseas if they need to. As far as getting money, check with your current bank and credit card companies, because one of the things you want to avoid are what are called exchange fees. Exchange fees, what are charged when you move money from one currency to another. So if you had to move money from dollars to pounds, you'll pay a percentage in exchange fees. And you've seen them at airports. I'm sure if you've traveled internationally, they're more expensive, but some banks and some credit cards do not charge exchange fees when you use them, which is great because that saves you money every time you use them. And you can use credit cards all over the world, ATM machines for your daily cash. And if you do have to move money around, there's a service called Zoom that lets you move money and transfer internationally. They're owned by PayPal. So if you use PayPal, you can use XOOM, zoom.com. Any questions so far about finances, costs? We do another live, work, or live or retire abroad one just about finances and costs. And this is from a friend of mine that he and his wife live in Cuenca, Ecuador, and what they said they were paying every month for expenses. Now they don't have a car. I mean, Maddie and her boyfriend, they have a car, and they also brought a dog, which are some additional expenses. Okay, but if you don't have a pet and you don't have a car, you can save a lot of money. In fact, I have friends that are starting to think now about not owning a car at all, even in the US, because they're saying if I need to go somewhere, I can get an Uber, I can get things delivered. They work from home, they don't need to take road trips. A car is a convenience, but you can save a lot of money without having the ownership of a car. Part of it was his insurance bill went up about 15%, and he got upset about that because he didn't like the price increase. He said, maybe I can get rid of my car and I don't need to keep it, right? And you look at gas and it's expensive, right? So you think, okay, these things are expensive. Okay, so visas and residency. Okay, when you have a passport or a visa, you can go somewhere as a tourist, but check the website for the country you're planning to go to see what they require for more than 90 days of staying there, and update your passport. If it's going to expire in 6 months, get it renewed, get it updated. Most of the countries that are on the international living and Expatistan, they'll give you a type of visa that lets you stay there as long as you can show you've got income and you're in good health. So you might have to get a doctor's letter. You might have to show your Social Security or pension statement of income in order to get that. So those are things you want to be able to get ready before you go there. This is where I lived in Medellin for a while. I like living in the city. I like walking around. It's more convenient for me. And so I didn't miss the beach so much, but I like the community. I just like being able to walk around and get to things on a regular basis. But if you want something like Amazon delivery, check to make sure the country you live in does that, because not Amazon doesn't deliver everywhere yet, but they do in a lot of countries, but they're not every. And I recommend you rent. I would go visit 3 times. I'd go as stay in a hotel the first time, but I'd go find real estate agents, realtors, or just like here in the US, they've got offices and they handle rentals more. And you can get short-term rentals for a month, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, anywhere you want. And some people are global nomads. They don't stay anywhere permanently. They just move around. And the RV industry has kind of made that possible to do. And then you can take tours. A couple of places that you'll see in ads on International Living, they offer tours, mostly in Central and Latin America. They arrange visits with expats. They take you to a couple of different places in the country, and they give you a guided tour. Because when you go on a vacation, you're not necessarily going there to learn about what it's like to live there. You're going to see some things. You'll get some local flavor, but it's very different from saying, okay, what is it like to live in this neighborhood? And so my approach was always kind of like a 3-step approach. I'd go there first, stay at a hotel for a week or 2, but then I'd go back on a second visit for about a month and I'd take a language class. Language schools are really good entry-level organizations to help you get acquainted. And the language instructors will really help you with a lot of advice and getting help and other things too. So I can't believe an hour went by. It's just amazing, how much we could talk about this topic. You can travel, remember, you can travel for most anywhere on your passport for 90 days. So it's very different living somewhere and staying in one place for even a month than it is to just visit for a few days and go on to the next location. I have a son that I mentioned, he lives in a small town just south of Barcelona called Sitges. He and his wife and my granddaughter live there. They've got a 3,000 square foot home with a swimming pool. It's a walking distance to her British school, and they're paying $1,800 a month in rent. It's a gated community. I had an apartment in Barcelona, in Sitges myself. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It was $850 a month, and it was literally, I could walk to the beach. I could walk to downtown Sitges. I didn't have to leave town at all, and I could just relax, go for a bike. There was a bike tour company in town and other things. So it's just a matter of what you like and what you want and what you expect. So this is kind of an introduction, okay? So there's some great classes on tips for traveling safely, the virtual travel with Google Earth. We are going to cover some things about finances and costs, and I think they've scheduled the one on healthcare and culture, which is kind of interesting. For those of you that have ever lived in Latin America or Central America, you know that when you schedule things to get done, it's an estimate, right? It's not anything that's going to happen for sure. So if you think the plumber is going to come out at 3:30, maybe not, but they'll get there eventually type of thing. So you have to be adaptable on those types of things. So any questions for you? Hopefully this gave you some ideas and some things to think about. Feel free to explore the sites. Feel free to come to the other classes about live or retire abroad. The finances and costs we go into little more depth on how to research costs by city location, do comparisons and moving money around. I do some Windows 10 basics classes and classes on Zoom and other things like that. So hopefully I'll see you for some of those. So any questions that people have? If not, I'll stay on for a few minutes, but if not, enjoy the rest of your evening or afternoon, and hopefully you will see you on Get Set Up tomorrow as well. Okay, what better place to spend your time, right?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much for joining.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for the feedback. See you soon. Thank you, Keisha. Thanks you. Bye-bye. Take care. Thanks, Lester, for helping out.